We're going to hear now from another inspiring individual, and I'm very, very thrilled to introduce our 2019 commencement speaker, the Honorable Alex Padilla, California Secretary of State. When he arrived, it was easy to see he was a person of authority just because of his carriage, but his manner and his style was so inviting and so welcoming and so gracious. Sometimes when people carry the title that he carries, they're a bit aloof and distant, but that is not at all part of the presence of this gentleman that is going to come and speak to us shortly. A proud son of immigrants whose father worked as a short order cook while his mother cleaned houses, Secretary Padilla went from Los Angeles public schools to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, one of the most prestigious institutions in the field that he studied. And there he earned a degree in mechanical engineering. In 1999, he was selected to the Los Angeles City Council to represent the community where he grew up. He was 26 years old at the time. In 2001, his colleagues elected him to the first of 3 terms as City Council President, the youngest member and first Latino to serve in that capacity. In 2006, Secretary Padilla was elected to the first of 2 terms to the California State Senate, and as a state senator, he authored legislation to improve the community college transfer process, creating associate degrees for transfer that would be accepted for full credit by the California State University system. Some of you will benefit from his work. Over the course of 8 years, he successfully authored legislation on telecommunications, broadband deployment, energy and energy efficiency, grid modernization, education, job creation, and a number of other issues in critical areas. And then in 2014, he was elected as the California Secretary of State, the first Latino to be elected to this constitutional office in the state of California. And in this role, he has committed to modernizing the office, increasing voter registration and participation, and protecting voting rights. Last year, the California Motor Voter Program was launched and registered 1 million new voters in its first year alone. And Secretary Padilla also secured the passage of the Voters' Choice Act. And in 2018, Secretary Padilla oversaw the state's historic general election, where 64.5% of registered voters cast a ballot. This represented the highest turnout for a gubernatorial election since 1982. And in March of 2019, California reached a record 20 million registered voters. He led the work to get that many people to be registered to vote and then to actually vote. Secretary Padilla, never underestimate the power of your vote. It makes a difference. Secretary Padilla lives in the San Fernando Valley with his wife Angela and their 3 sons, and he told me his 6-year-old just graduated and wore his cap and gown and a little mortarboard, and so from kindergarten. So they're going to take pictures together, I think, with the cap and gown and the mortarboard and everything. It'll be a nice memory for the years ahead for them to look back on. So let's give the Honorable Alex Padilla a true SMC welcome, and I invite him now to the podium to deliver the 2019 commencement address.
Wow. Good evening, SMC. Graduates, how do you feel? I can feel the energy all the way up here on the stage. I want to start by thanking President Jeffries for that very kind and thoughtful introduction, and frankly, for your ongoing leadership here at Santa Monica College. You probably have all heard it, you're probably proud of it, but I want to take this moment to recognize the tremendous reputation that Santa Monica College has for your academic record. Even years before the Student Transfer Achievement Reform Act of 2010, Santa Monica College was a leader, not just in students coming through here, but in students moving on to four-year universities. But as the author of that reform in 2010, I gotta tell you how excited I am to see how many students all over the state are benefiting from that clear, more consistent pathway to four-year universities, including many of you sitting here in your caps and gowns here today. I want to also recognize the trustees, the faculty that are here, the administrators, and the classified staff, because it's taken the collective effort of all of you to make Santa Monica College what it is today. It's your collective commitment both to education and to the students that has given Santa Monica College the reputation that you've earned. Of course, good evening to all the family and the friends of graduates that are here to celebrate. We have them on the side view seating here. We have them in the bleachers in the back. We even have an overflow crowd on top of the parking structure. Let's give them a wave. There's a lot of people here to celebrate. But the biggest welcome of the evening is for the SMC class of 2019. Including one Saul Eisler, who is graduating at the ripe young age of 85. Proving to all of us that it's never too late to learn. I want to thank you all for allowing me to share this special occasion with you. As I look out at all of you, darn, you look good. I'm reminded of my own college graduation, which seems like just yesterday, feels like just yesterday, but was now 25 years ago. This last weekend, my classmates, the MIT class of 1994, got together in Massachusetts to celebrate our 25-year reunion. I didn't get a chance to go, so I'm going to celebrate with all of you here. How's that? But it feels like it was just yesterday that I was wearing my cap and gown, had my stomach filled with butterflies of excitement to celebrate with my friends, my classmates, that I was graduating from college. And I was celebrating also with my family. After years and years of reading and writing and studying and presentations and taking tests and working to help pay for tuition and books and everything else, I was graduating from college. I felt like I was ready to enter the world and conquer the world like many of you feel today. It was a special day for me. But it was even a more special day for my parents. My parents, as you heard, were immigrants. My father, Santos Padilla, and my mother, Lupe Padilla, came to the United States from Mexico in the 1960s. My dad is from the state of Jalisco. And he came, works every time. And he came to the United States with a first grade education and a dream and an incredible work ethic. My mom was from the state of Chihuahua. That usually works too. And she was the lucky one. She had a chance to finish elementary school before having to work and help the family like my dad did. She too came to the United States with a big dream and an even bigger heart. They came separately, giving themselves each a year to maybe find a job and a path to a better life. And in that year, they did find jobs, they found each other, they fell in love, and decided to apply for green cards in that particular order. And I thank the US government every day for saying yes to those applications because if those applications would have been denied, my life story would have been a lot different. But they were approved. My parents went on to quickly get married, settle into the San Fernando Valley, and start a family. Before retiring, my father worked as a short order cook. You heard that in the introduction. And for the same 40 years, my mom used to clean houses. That's hard work. That's honest work. But with that work and with that sacrifice, my parents raised 3 children. I have a sister who's been a teacher's aide. She's been a teacher. She's been an assistant principal. She's been a principal. And she now works as an administrator for the Los Angeles Unified School District. I have a brother who works as chief of staff to Los Angeles City Council member Nuri Martinez. And I proudly stand before you as California Secretary of State. Now think about that. In one generation, my family has gone from being the immigrants, the cooks, the house cleaners, to me standing before you as one of the constitutional officers in the most populous state in the nation, this great state of California. The American dream is alive. That's right. The American dream is alive. The American dream is under attack at times, but the American dream lives on. Now, as Secretary of State, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind all of you, if you're 18 years or older and a citizen of the United States, you need to register to vote and vote in every election. Not just when we're voting on President of the United States, but especially when we're voting on President of the United States. And in California, we make it simple and easy. You can go to registertovote.ca.gov. But in all seriousness, I need your voices heard in the political process. If you didn't get to this in government class or in math class, young Californians ages 18 to 29 represent the biggest potential voting bloc, but represent the voting bloc that tends to register and vote at the lowest rates. Now, if you haven't heard, we got an election coming up next year in 2020. Our presidential primary is coming in March. It'll be here before you know it. And your votes can make a difference. California is going to be one of the first states to vote in the presidential primary, not one of the last. And so I want your voices heard in that election. Now, I've shared my family story tonight, and I've shared it proudly, but I also have shared it humbly, because that just happens to be my story. I know in each and every one of you, there's a story of sacrifice, of hard work, of dreams, and of perseverance. And so I want to acknowledge your stories, the stories of what you've been through, the story of what you and your family will do in the future to contribute to this country, to contribute to our state, to contribute to your community. So for all of that, I also say thank you. And once again, congratulations. You know, the fact that my sister, my brother, and I are all public servants, given what we do, is no coincidence. It is completely a reflection of lessons and values that our parents instilled in us. Many, many lessons, many, many values. Chief among them, the principles of education and helping others. Can't tell you how many times when I was growing up, my father would interrupt me trying to do my homework. And he would tell me, hijo, cuando crezcas, quiero que trabajes con tu mente y no con tu espalda. If you didn't, I'll translate. Can't tell you how many times my dad interrupted my homework and would tell me, son, when you grow up, I want you to work with your mind. I want you to work with your brain, not with your back. Now, there's a lot of honor for those who do manual labor in our society. But it was my dad's way of saying that he wanted us, he wanted me to get a good education so that I would have more opportunities in life than he did. And the way to that was getting that good education. I graduated from San Fernando High School in 1990, which means that it was in the 80s that I was in junior high and going through high school. Anybody here see this movie called Straight Outta Compton? That was the 80s. And the gang violence and drug activity that you've heard about in Los Angeles in the 80s was not isolated to South LA. The community I grew up in, Pacoima, was not immune. I remember one evening when I was in about the 8th grade, had two neighbors, one from down the block, one from around the corner, Mr. Fajardo, Mr. Olvera, come knock on our door. They sat my parents down in the living room and just poured out their frustration that despite their calls to law enforcement, despite their calls to the politicians at the time, that nobody was responding, even though on a nightly basis, we could look outside our front window and saw gang activity, violence, drug dealing, prostitution, and it was only a matter of time before that police helicopter started circling overhead. And if our representatives weren't going to do anything about it, then the parents in the community had to come together to make it be known to those behind the crime that they were not welcome here. And in short order, some of the parents and some of the kids started taking some risk, started taking down license plate numbers and descriptions of cars of those we knew did not belong in our community. Within a couple of years, we had taken our neighborhood back, and it was safe to walk the streets again. I learned a lot through that experience. Our world has tremendous opportunity, but our world is not perfect. And many times, our world is not fair. And if you are like me and want to see our world change for the better, we can't just sit back and wait for it to happen. We can't just sit back and let others come in and do it for us. Like the saying goes, be the change you want to see in the world. That experience and that lesson weighed on me years later when I came home from MIT with that mechanical engineering degree. There were two things happening in Southern California in the early 90s that changed the course of my life forever. Number one, Southern California was in a deep, deep recession. And so if I had any aspirations of going back to Hughes Aircraft for that mechanical engineering job in aerospace, it was going to be tougher than I would have imagined. But the other thing, in 1994, there was a measure on the ballot that November that we refer to now as Proposition 187. And for those of you who may not remember what Proposition 187 was, let me explain it. It was a question before the voters of California that said, should we make immigrants and children of immigrants no longer eligible for public services? What does that mean? That means if, let's say, your family did not have health insurance through your parents' employer, and the only chance you had to see a doctor if you were sick was to go to a county clinic, that you could no longer do that because public health is a public service. Depending on the lawyer you asked, it also meant that children, like me, could no longer go to public schools because some argue that public education is a public service. That sound familiar? Sounds a whole lot like some of the rhetoric we're hearing in our national political environment today. Well, folks, that was the state of California when I was sitting where you are, not that long ago. So up until that time, I confess I was very cynical about politics and politicians. I had reason to be. But Proposition 187 changed everything. After Proposition 187, which was defeated in the courts, by the way, there was a lot of people throughout the state of California, like my parents, who really had no plans or urgency to become citizens, finally make that choice and start the process, not just to help protect themselves and their families, but so that they could register to vote and vote in every election. And you had a lot of people of my generation who might have been cynical up until that point, finally realize that born here as a citizen, I didn't just have a right, I had an obligation to register and to vote. And I quickly learned that I could do way more than just that. I could register, I could vote, but I could also organize. I can organize my friends, I can organize my family, my neighbors, my classmates, and fight for our community. And less than 5 years later was my first election to the Los Angeles City Council. So I'm gonna pause right there because I don't think I'm here tonight to give you my walk down memory lane or a lecture on California political history. The point of me sharing all this with you is something I've said once already and brings more meaning to it now. The American dream is still alive. I'm here as proof that if you're willing to work hard for what you believe in and persevere, that you can make your life and this world a better place for you, for your family, for your community, and for future generations. Just to be here today is testimony that you've already worked hard. To be here today and to celebrate today is testament that you've already persevered. Now, I know it hasn't been easy. Today's ceremony is just the evidence of your years of determination, of studying, and hard work, balancing academics with working to pay the bills. So yes, I implore you to take time today and the next couple of days to celebrate this important milestone for you and for your family. And make sure you take time to thank those around you, your friends, your classmates, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, for having been part of your journey and your success. After today, you're one big step closer to realizing your California dream. Now, after today, many of you have chosen to, as your next step, to go on to a four-year university, whether it's a UC, a CSU, or one of the privates. Great, more studying, more tests. It's all good. It's part of the journey, part of the dream. Others will take your education and skills and go straight into the workforce. And I wish all of you all the success in the world in both your academic and your professional careers. But I invite you to do your part to make our nation, our states, and your community better. Civic responsibility begins with registering and voting, but it doesn't end there. Some of you may choose a career in public service, and if that's you, in advance, I say thank you. For others, it may not be public service. It'll be a different career path. And I ask you to please make sure to volunteer, to get involved, to support an organization or a cause that you feel passionate about. Be one of those warriors that Maya spoke so eloquently about. For just as you are inheriting this world from previous generations, it is now up to you to shape this world and make it better for future generations. So let's continue with this ceremony. Let's get on to our celebrations tonight. Congratulations again, Santa Monica College, class of 2019. Thank you, and God bless you.